Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, Nuts and Bolts Business Development in Brazil. Today we'll have three guests from Brazil. Just before we started, let me just go here and see the attendees because we have Vinicius as well as part of the guest. We're going to try to habilitate his microphone.
Yes.
Hi. Hello.
Okay.
Okay, now we are okay. Good. So once again, thank you everybody for being here. Sorry about the first minute. Now we are going to start with our webinar about Brazil, Nuts and Bolts Business Development in Brazil. Today we have three guests from Brazil, and first guest is Rafael Pinto. He's manager director of his own consulting work at Ocasio International Advisory Services, working with partners from different projects and business development opportunities. Ocasio seeks to assist its clients who want to work in Brazil and other countries as well. Rafael has managed several projects that involve multi-stakeholders participation, including international organizations, non-governmental organizations, universities, and government agencies. Actually, Rafael is one of our associates in Brazil for Go South. Welcome, Rafael. Rafael, are you there?
Yes, and thank you so much, Miriam, and thanks for the opportunity to take part of this webinar. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Now let's continue with our next guest, Eduardo Sete Câmara. He started his career at FINEP, is the Brazilian Innovation Agency, Venture Capital Area Managing an International Cooperation Agreement called Innovar, with IADB and MIF aim to add fostering the venture capital ecosystem in Brazil and Latin America, having built an extensive knowledge and network through Brazil and LATAM. Left FINEP after 7 years as a manager of Innovar to start his own company, Exim Ventures, focusing providing soft landing for foreign companies, mainly IT related, that want to enter the Brazilian market and investment, advising Brazilian companies looking for funding and international through LATAM. Welcome, Eduardo.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and talk a little bit about Brazil.
Good. And now Vinicius Machado is a tech entrepreneur, web designer, and co-founder of X4 Startups. Colusius and Comunidade Colaborativa. I'm really sorry, but I don't have a really good Portuguese. Vinicius is also a project coordinator at Brazilian Startup Association Communities Committee and mentor at Startup Farms, Microsoft Mobile App Accelerator Camp, Startup Weekend, and he participates as a judge at Innovation Day, Rio de Janeiro, Demo Brazil, and Seed MG programs. Now, sir, welcome Vinicius to our webinar. Vinicius, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. Just the lag of my microphone. I'm sorry.
Good.
It's nice to finally be here and talk to you about Brazil and the opportunities about innovation and startups. So thanks for the invitation. I'm here to help as well.
Good. So I'm just going to put up another presentation because our presentation is just not doing good now. I think my computer is not really want to work right now. Okay, why we don't go just start with the questions while I'm working here this. How do you describe the Brazilian startup ecosystem, guys? You are all from Rio. How do you describe it? It's very diverse, I guess. What can you say about the startup ecosystem? Who will start?
Right now in Brazil, we are very in the first steps about the startup ecosystem in Brazil. So we don't have a large ecosystem. Brazil, although our country is very large and very big, we are in the beginning of this movement in Brazil. So as the Brazilian Association of Startups just started 3 years ago, right now the media is picking up the topic, and there's a lot of events and a lot of initiatives, and we have different communities in Brazil. So we have a specific thing that happens here that we try to mimic the name of the Silicon Valley in our different communities. So we have Jaraqui Valley, we have Carajé Valley, a lot of places that the communities are branding themselves are Bank Valley, in spite of having valley here in Brazil. It's very unusual, but it's happening right now. And the thing is, a lot of young entrepreneurs are coming into this ecosystem. We have accelerators, we have all the moving parts that are needed, but our ecosystem is very young. So we are trying to understand what is the best way to help entrepreneurs, and the government is trying to pick up the pace as well. So we are very an ecosystem in its infancy. So it's how I describe it here, but it's very exciting because we have a lot of things to discover and to build as well.
Good. So you are telling me right now Brazil is trying to replicate Silicon Valley. That is happening all around Latin America. Do you think Brazil really is going to become Silicon Valley, or that's just kind of a representation of what is tech community today?
Yeah, I think that we are going to develop our own pace, because in spite of our location here in Latin America, Brazil is very different from our brother countries here all around us. But the thing is, I believe right now we are using Silicon Valley and Israel and different countries as examples, but I think we are going to need to disrupt our own kind of ecosystem here, because we have different challenges, we have a different culture, and we have different laws as well. So it's what we are figuring out right now. A lot of different initiatives, but I think if we are to mimic other countries, I think we will fail. I think the thing is to build our own vision, because I don't think you can mimic Silicon Valley or Israel or Canada or the UK. I think each one of them has different kind of aspects, and why they were built is different as well. So I think in Brazil we are getting our own steps in a different, in a very singular way as well.
Good. Now the others, Rafael and Eduardo, do you have the same opinion? What do you think about the startup ecosystem in Brazil?
I was just going to mention two things to complement what Vinicius was saying. I think there's a lot of pockets of startup communities beginning in different parts of Brazil. Brazil is a very big country, so there's movements in in different states and in cities that are starting communities. What we have to learn still here is and there is already an initiative starting in this kind of best practice, learning from each other's communities, connecting each other's communities. So that's an ongoing process that we still need to have in the country here. And one thing I was going to mention in this startup report, Startup Geno report they do every year, São Paulo is number 12. Not too long ago it was number 13, so it went up to number 12 in the world. Well, they have their own criteria of measuring ecosystems, but it's a good sign that we have a city that's moving forward, so to look up to. So, but yeah, I think there's a lot to do, like Vinicius said, and there's a lot to learn from each other's communities inside Brazil, because it's a very big country and there's a lot of different initiatives taking hold.
Sounds good. Now let's move on to the next question. What kind of startups are booming currently in Brazil? What kind of startups do you have right now in the country? Eduardo, maybe you can help us with that?
Yes, Miriam, I think I'll let Vinicius answer that one. I'd just like to add on the previous question, more on an investment side and investment view is that having been in the venture capital industry for the past 8 years here in Brazil, especially working with the Inter-American Development Bank and FINEP trying to foster venture capital in Brazil and Latin America, that the scenario, the scenery for startups and seed capital in Brazil has dramatically changed over the past 7 years. I honestly would not believe 7 years ago that the ecosystem would be what it is right now. And one of the things that we have here in Brazil, which compared to the U.S. is a very small number, but I think it's quite large considering the small scale that we still have in terms of seed capital, is that there's around R$1 billion or something around $300 million of capital either invested in startups and or early stage venture capital companies or as dry powder. That just give an idea about the startup community and ecosystem that we have here in Brazil. About the booming startups currently in Brazil, I think I'd rather let Vinicius talk about that, because we act as investors. We see a lot of startups, but we are kind of restricted on the kind of startups that we want to see. So a broader view would probably come from Vinicius.
Okay, Vinicius, what do you think? What kind of startups are booming right now in Brazil?
Right now, in Brazil, we have a specialty that is marketplaces. We have, I was just talking with Dave Parker about it, and we have an unfair number of marketplaces in Brazil. I think it's one of the business models that Brazilians tend to like, because we are in this kind of economy where we have a lot of middlemen. So it's normally for us to try to create marketplaces, but as well we are seeing a lot of startups talking about and entering in the logistics part, and as well with the small business like saloons or mechanic shops, this kind of startups that are trying to solve problems for this little kind of business, because there are a lot of challenges, and they are the majority of the business in Brazil. So that's what I used to call little B2B. So the little companies or the small companies in Brazil, we have a lot of solutions for them as well, from marketplaces, as I said, up to tools to help them work out their finances, their schedule, and so on. So that's what I'm seeing more. But depends on where you are in Brazil. You're going to see a lot of people doing health startups as well, and I think it's a new movement right now, and the maker movement is starting to get some attention here as well, with IoT and 3D printing and hardware as well. Is starting to pick up the pace in Brazil right now.
Okay, so I can see that it's very diverse, many kind of sectors. Will be one sector more workable right now, like ICT or green tech or clean tech? Will you see one sector with the most percent of startups?
Not really, because because depends on where you are in Brazil. We have different incentives, because sometimes the local governments have different incentives depending where you are. So it's very diverse, because we have a large country, so it's normal to be diverse as well.
Sounds good. So let's go to the next question then. What are the solutions your ecosystem is looking for? If a startup is coming up to Brazil, an international startup, what kind of solutions is your ecosystem right now trying to get from international startups, for instance? Who wants to answer that one?
I mean, perhaps I'll start, but
Yeah.
I think the part about finance investment, Eduardo would be more of an expert. I think a lot of stuff with education. With this, there was a boom of accelerators and incubators, well, especially accelerators, going on in the last few years. But what we've been noticing as well, and Vinicius himself actually works a lot with this area. You can explain better. Is education of pre-acceleration education for the startups to get them ready actually to compete better in the business world, to understand how business works. So instead of putting startups in acceleration programs, there's a need need for the entrepreneurs in the startups to be better educated in different aspects of business development. So and if there are donors or partners abroad that would be interested in this kind of opportunities, I think that's definitely a solution that could really boom help take off the ecosystem here as well. So I think that's an opportunity for education and training of the starting startups that is in the ecosystems. That's just a startup idea.
That is a good point. I see also that startups, there is a huge infrastructure projects coming up. Do you think startups have opportunities to show what kind of solutions internationally they have in the infrastructure sector? It can be Vinicius or Rafa. Yeah.
Just the lag. The solutions that the startups are you asking about the solution that the startups, Brazilian startups are looking for? Is it right?
Yeah, it's the ecosystem in general. Like, what kind of solutions do you need? For example, I'm going to give you a very easy example. In Peru, for example, they said the ecosystem is so new that really they are in need right now of any kind of a startup, because they need solutions to different sectors, like mining, like other sectors in the fintech sector, for example. Is there that kind of necessity in Brazil that you will see maybe an international startup will help in this particular sector?
Yeah, I think that the sectors that are more in need here is the financial aspect of our ecosystem, because not just fintech just to know about your bank account, but how to control your finances and how to deal with paperwork as well, how to control the different kind of aspects in Brazil, because there's a lot of bureaucracy and there's a lot of different processes that we need to work out our business. And as well, Brazilians tend to love social media as well. So to help about marketing and about social media and different kind of platforms that help they advertise better and to reach out to more public in Brazil. I think it's a very welcomed area in Brazil as well. And but we are fairly new as well. So if you really want to have a go in Brazil, we have a large internet group of people that are very enthusiastic with different kind of startups. I think Brazilians tend to be very good early adopters because we tend to enter everything. Doesn't matter if it's in English or it's in Portuguese, and especially if it's a social network or any viral startups, we tend to enter and try to use them as well. So there's a lot of space here.
Sounds good. That's a really good answer. It's the first answer that I hear that they need in social media, because I think that's a really important sector for many startups, because they need to reach more customers and users around the world, right? So that's good. Thank you, Vinicius. We're going to continue to the next question. This one is about Brazil. Brazil is so big, and what are the recommendations? Where international startups should start? In Sao Paulo, Rio? I would like to ask this question to Rafael. where an international startup should start?
Hi, I think Eduardo Vinicius might be able to give a better perception, but I think it also depends what area. You need to mention about incentives in different states. Different states also work with different sectors more. So if there's more creative industries, for example, it might be more interesting in Rio. São Paulo, there is a trend. I'm not saying all of them do, but there's a trend that the startups that start getting traction, they end up going to São Paulo because that's where usually the customers, a lot of customers are, or where the money is, right? I mean, as you grow, more investors, more contacts are usually found in São Paulo. But does not mean that you have to be in São Paulo. But that's a trend that usually the Brazilians are. A lot of the startups are take that route because of obvious reasons of the size of São Paulo, and the ecosystem is a little bit more developed. But I'll let the other guys also answer, but depends what areas you're in as well. Down in Floripa, there's other areas that might be interesting, might be easier, might have incentives for startups. Anybody else?
Yeah, I do think that if you really want to be where the money is, where the fastest business transactions are, you need to have an office or at least a desk at São Paulo. So I'm from Rio de Janeiro, and I moved to São Paulo because here things move faster. So it doesn't matter if you have an opportunity in different states, because as I said before, there are different incentives. But the thing is, you need to have a stop shop in São Paulo. You just can't miss São Paulo in Brazil. So I think here is a place, as Itaú is a large bank in Brazil, have a new place here called Google, where they are open to new startups. Google as well is finishing the Google campus in Brazil, also in São Paulo. So I think São Paulo is the place.
Okay, good. I think our next question is actually for Eduardo. Eduardo, if you can help us with this one. How is angel investment in Brazil and how it works?
Okay, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the previous question. I totally agree with Rafael. I think the company should go where the clients are. If you talk about creative industries, you should definitely be in Rio because most of the companies are here. Most of the big clients are here, like global. But other companies, I think, really depends on what sector you're in. Sure, you have most of the major companies have their offices in São Paulo, but you have some pretty important people here in Rio, like the guys from Acelera Partners who invest in Acelera Tech, one of the main accelerators in Brazil. Their office is like 5 blocks from my office here in downtown Rio. I'm pretty much a 15-minute walk from the airport and a 45-minute flight to São Paulo. So I think depending on what you do, you could either pick Rio or São Paulo. About the angel investment in Brazil, the angel investment here works pretty much the same way it works in the U.S. If you're talking to some professional angel investors, people who actually make more than one investment and actually know what they're doing, we have the industry, the venture capital industry as a whole in Brazil has pretty much copied the model in the U.S. For venture capital contracts, for the regulation that we have for venture capital funds. The regulation that we have here is basically a translation and a copy of the limited partnership structure. And the term sheets that angel investors and the terms that we use are pretty much the same as in the U.S. and Canada and all over the world.
Okay, I have a question for you there. Are investors in Brazil also mentors? Or are those investors that just give a check and we'll see you in a month?
No, I think the most angel investors here, they act as mentors. The thing is, of course, you're going to have some very good investors and some very bad investors. I've seen some very good, some people with very good stories and people with terrible stories where they took the money and instead of acting as a mentor, the investor acted as someone that was always on their case for them to start making money, and that disrupted how the company was developing. At some point, they just bought the investor out. But most of the guys here they tend to invest in companies that they know something about the sector or have some kind of experience.
Okay, good. I guess that's pretty much like Latin America, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next question. And you guys can participate anytime, when you feel like you have something to contribute. And then this one here is about, would you recommend a startup to partner with a local in Brazil? Would you do that?
Yes, always. Always have always. Not only if you're coming to Brazil, but if you're going anywhere. If we were to take some of the companies that we're investing in to Canada or the U.S. or Mexico or Colombia, I always have some foot on the ground, some locals to help me navigate the seas there, especially when you're talking about Latin America. All of the countries in Latin America are very different from each other. I joke around saying that one of the things that we all have in common is the amount of red tape. But the red tape is different, but we all have a lot of red tape. Yeah, so,
That's true.
Yeah, so I will definitely have some boots on the ground. What we are doing right now at Exim Ventures, I'll give you an example. We're talking to a company that has been accelerated by NextCP Labs, who are, by the way, partners of ours. And we're trying to bring them into Brazil. And we found a startup here that's been accelerated by Navi, which is a pre-acceleration program from a private university here in Brazil, that offers a complementary service to what the Argentinian company is offering. So what we are doing right now is we put them all together and we are negotiating a partnership between them to have the Brazilian startup act as the boots on the ground for the Argentinian company, which is already in 5 countries and has 200 clients, but they're not in Brazil yet, which is generating a very, very interesting mix of professionals, because the entrepreneurs from the Argentinian company, they're all seasoned entrepreneurs. They all have a lot of professional experience. They're very good. They are all older than me. The guys in Brazil, they are all younger than me. They have very little professional experience, but they do have a lot of enthusiasm, that kind of enthusiasm that you start losing when you start getting older. So for them, it's a very good mix. For the Brazilian startups, they can learn from the seasoned professionals from other countries.
That's good. What about you, Vinicius? What do you think about that, partnering with a local startup?
I think he's totally right. I think if you really want to come to Brazil, you need to hire someone here or make a good partnership with Brazilian startup, especially if they are in the getting out of the early stage phase. I think it's amazing. I know Navi, the program that was talked about just now. I'm a mentor there, but also I know that Plug, there's a co-working space, and they tend to, and they have services managing buildings as Kubo, the one that I said about before. They have a partnership, I think, with the Canadian government to be a soft landing platform. So if a startup wants to come to Brazil but they don't have an office yet, they don't know where to be, they can come to Plug, because they have this partnership that they announced, I think, just in the beginning of the year with the Canadian government. So there's a lot of incentives and places to be here, And because they are, of course, in Brazil, they have a lot of networking with different entrepreneurs and startups as well. So I think if you want to come to Brazil, and I say come to Brazil, but do a partnership with a local entrepreneur or a local startup. So it's going to be marvelous.
Sounds good. That's a good recommendation. Let's move on then to the next question. And this question is a little bit difficult because we know that Brazil has probably many layers regarding laws. But how easy is to really create a company in Brazil?
Right now, I know the government's working on a project that should be up and running by next year. They're doing the testing in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, where you supposedly can open your company in 5 business days. Right now, I doubt that it will take you less than 40 days to actually 40 business days to actually get your company open here in Brazil. I'll give you an example. We here, Exim Ventures is focusing on providing soft landing for international companies that want to come to Brazil. We have 3 in-house lawyers who pretty much all they do is contracts. So contract law, and we have about some 45 companies registered for us. Either they're startups or companies to invest in, or they're shell companies for some deals that we do. When we were opening my company, Exim Ventures, and mind you that we're in a case where money is not a problem and experience in lawyers is not a problem. It took us almost 2 months to get my company open.
2 months. Okay.
Yeah.
And how much it costs to open a company there in Brazil? What is the easiest way or the cheapest way to open a company in Brazil?
I think you're going to probably spend something about like $500, maybe less, depends on what type of company you're trying to open. Okay,
good. Vinicius, do you think is any difference in between the cities to open a company? Like, is different to open a company in Sao Paulo or Rio, or is going to be probably the same?
Yeah, it depends, because we depends on the company. You need to have 3 different grants from the city hall, from the government of the state, and from the federal government. So depends on what kind of company you are trying to open. You won't be able to open, depends on the state or the city, because there's different laws. For example, I know it's not startups, but it's just an example. Some if you want to do acupuncture, you can be a licensed professional of acupuncture in Rio, but in São Paulo you need to be a doctor or a physician to do this. So depends on, you need to look at the amount of time and the amount of money. It's almost the same. It just depends on the kind of company, because if you are selling just services and not products, it depends on what you're going to sell. It depends on what kind of taxes or paper you need to show.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mary. I'd just like to add an example that I think is going to cover this and some other questions. We were talking to a company that they have a peer-to-peer lending platform, and they're already operating in Argentina and Colombia and some other countries. And they are also accelerated by NextCP Labs. They wanted to come to Brazil, and so NextCP told them to talk to us. I heard them out, and I told them, I'm going to put you in contact with a lawyer that used to be a director at the Central Bank in Brazil. But I'm 99% sure that he's going to tell you that peer-to-peer lending in Brazil is called loan sharking, and it's a crime. So your company, your business model is not legal in Brazil, and so they talked, and he decided to not come into the country.
Okay, that's interesting. So Okay, but it's not that difficult. It's more like the process around to open the company. Is that the part that may be difficult for any startup?
I'm sorry? I didn't get what your question was.
Yeah, sorry. It's just that we have a storm here right now. It's kind of going off. But what I'm asking is for a startup to open a company, it may be the process which is difficult for them. Not all the cost. It's more the process for them to open a company.
Yeah, it's pretty much knowing what you're doing, so you don't have to try to do the same thing twice and spend money you didn't actually need to spend for something that you actually don't need. It's more about
Okay,
complexity than cost.
sounds good.
And Miriam,
Yeah,
I was just gonna,
yeah.
sorry, I was just gonna add, on top of everything Eduardo and Vinicius said, just having good lawyers on the ground, having good partners can facilitate the process a lot. So it's worth investing in getting to know the people here, getting good partners, lawyers, accountants, and the process that Eduardo said, it'll be easier done if you have people on the ground that can help you guide.
Okay, good. Let's continue with the next question. Many people in the world know that Brazil presents a big challenge that can bring you also a huge success. If you know how to enter to the market there, how long will it take for a company to actually get clients or some traction in the market? Will you say it's a year or so, or how long it will take?
If I had to guess a number, I'd say generally about a year, but really depends. If you're doing B2C, you could probably get it a lot earlier, like 6 months or even less. But if you're doing if you're doing B2B, you're definitely gonna take more than 9 months probably. Especially if you're trying to get the larger companies here. It's not so easy for them to change the contracts they already have with suppliers or to hire new suppliers. And if you want to do that with big companies, I would suggest that you get ready to try to close something starting October. As the closer you get to the end of the year, the easier it's going to be for you to get a contract with a big company, because either they're structuring their budget for next year, or they still have some money they need to spend this year.
Okay, and also it's a good season for them to actually plan the next year, right, in ahead, so they will know. Okay, Vinicius, what do you think about that? How long will it take for a company to actually get clients or some traction in the market?
Yeah, I totally agree with what he said, because the main problem here is, I think it's not just about how to get to the clients, because if you're just an online or an app, maybe it's easier for you, but it depends on what you're selling and what kind of approach you have. It's going to take this kind of time. I say normally what we see to people that are starting startups in Brazil, that they don't already have operations in other countries, is save some money to hustle for about 2 years. So if you are covered for about 2 years, I think it's okay for everybody.
Okay, good. What about you, Rafa? What do you think? How long it will take for an international company to actually get clients there?
No, I think both of them said the right thing. I think also if you're partnering with a local company, then it could be faster if someone's already got the momentum going, and you introduce an innovation or a new product. That might be a different scenario. But I think Eduardo and Vinicius were very clear as well.
Also, we need to say what we say always in private conversations. With right now we haven't said that, but in Brazil really it's Portuguese, right? It's not Spanish, it's not English, it's going to be Portuguese.
Yes.
So yeah, so good. So let's move on to the next question. How and what could an international startup contribute to Brazil? If an international startup is arriving, how it can contribute to Brazil, to the ecosystem?
Honestly, I think the professional experience that what I see here, what I saw at FINEPI, and what I see looking for companies to invest and to mentor here is that most of the entrepreneurs in Brazil are very young people with not so much professional experience and not so much technical experience also. We see a lot of ideas, a lot of projects for startups, but they're not really backed up by sweat equity that has built some asset for an investor to invest. I think that if you're talking about international startup that actually has the means to come into a country like Brazil, you're probably talking about somewhat seasoned entrepreneurs, be it their first a startup, their first company. They're already seasoned by what they went through in their own country. Be it that there are professionals, seasoned professionals that started their own companies, or they're serial entrepreneurs. I think the main thing that can contribute here is that experience that we lack in Brazil.
Okay. What about you, Vinicius? What do you think about that? How an international startup could contribute to Brazil?
I echo what Eduardo said. I think that's it. We need more experience in the startup field and about management, about processes, how to deal with different kind of cultures. I think it's a very good benefit for Brazilians. I have a lot of foreign friends, and they say Brazilians tend to be more slow in some process, especially people from the U.S. They tend to be more fast, and I think this kind of energy and this kind of velocity, I think, is going to be very good for our Brazilian ecosystem as well.
Good. Well, we have just one more question here. And what sectors, industries do you think will be most attractive for Brazilian startups or for businesses to partner with an international startup? What are those sectors? We were talking at the beginning that it's very diverse. So what do you think about that?
Miriam, this is Rafael. I would venture and talk about, in terms of opportunities, I think education and health are areas in Brazil that need more solutions and need more support. It's a huge market. I think if foreign companies with this background in this sector come in and develop opportunities here or partner with locals, there's a huge opportunity for education and health sectors. And I was just going to add a note about the last question. Sorry, I just it came to my head. I think that it also a lot of Brazilian startups and businesses think a lot only Brazil because our country is very big, our market's big, so a lot of them don't start thinking globally from the beginning. So a lot of this international contact or connections that we have that the people can provide from abroad can also open up the mind of a lot of startups here to actually think globally and expanding, depending on their capability, of course, on the moment and phase of their business. But just opening the vision of going globally, especially technology, digital technology startups, is something that can add a lot of value by having more contact with international people. But in terms of sectors, I'll start by saying education and health, I think, are where could be more attractive because of the needs we have and the opportunity of the market.
Yeah. What about you, Eduardo? What do you think, or Vinicius? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm sorry to chime in. So
yeah,
I think education. Okay, education and health for sure, but I think entertainment as well. We have a very large country with a lot of parties, and our folklore is very, very diverse, and we have a lot of shows and theaters and museums as well. So I think in this part of entertainment and events as well, we have a lot of opportunities here, and for tourism as well. I think a lot of startups in Brazil didn't crack the tourism part as well, how to solve, even from small vacation agencies, from hotels to how to manage different kind of tourist places in Brazil. I think tourism is a very good area as well. And I think the nightlife in Brazil, for as even but bars and restaurants and this kind of facilities and this kind of solutions for this kind of companies in Brazil, I think will come a long way as well.
What about you, Eduardo? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with all they said. I would point out I would usually say IT, but considering nowadays it's very difficult to actually put a company as being in the IT sector, right? So if you take a company like Uber, I wouldn't say they're exactly IT. They do use a lot of IT, but their sector is not IT sector, right? So
That's right.
Airbnb or those apps. I think in general, when I say IT, is that we have a very good opportunity right now for those kinds of companies where you're expanding to another country. It's pretty much having a sales team, a local sales team, because you can maintain your technology wherever you want. In case of Latin America, I do know that IT professionals are cheaper in Chile and in Argentina than they are in Brazil. They are just as good or even better than we have in Brazil, and they're cheaper. So for a Latin American startup, would make a lot of sense for them to have their IT development being done in Chile and having a sales team in other countries. And when you talk about Brazil, you need to have in mind that we have pretty much half the market in Latin America. So it is very hard to enter the market, but it is just one country.
Yeah, good. That is interesting too. Thank you so much for telling us that, about the cost of developers and all that. Now, well, I think that's all for now. A couple of questions we have received through email now, and these questions can be answered as well for any of you. Erica from Edmonton, she's asking, how do I get in contact with a partner in Brazil? I don't know what is the best method.
I was trying to add in the previous question, but with this partnership with Apex in Brazil, because the industrial sector in Brazil lacks a lot of innovation as well. It's not that easy to enter, but there's a lot of space to grow here. And Apex, it's APEX, it's the government agency for innovation and to attract to publicize how Brazil can be a good place to invest, and they attract investments here as well. So I think if you want to enter Brazil, Apex is a very good one, and the Brazilian Association of Startups as well. They are very embedded in the ecosystem, and I think companies like Eduardo's and places like Coworkings are a very good place to start as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would definitely say to Erica, if she wants to come to Brazil, send me an email. I'll help her. I'll either help her out or I'll point her towards someone that would be better suited to help her out.
Okay, but in case like any person like if they have to start to looking for a partner, right? How they do that? Do they do that through like a social media channels, or do they have to go to events, or what is the best way to meet your partner?
Honestly, if I were in her shoes, I'd start looking at the startup networks that you have in the country that you want to go to. People in generally people there are more friendly and more open and will help you out more than if you try to go to some bigger institution. Yeah.
Okay, good. Rafa, what do you think? What's the best way to get a partner?
It's a good, all the points that these guys mentioned, but remembering that most countries are too, but we're very relationship based here in Latin America and Brazil. So you can, just be on the alert. You can meet. I would suggest meeting different people, but really understanding where they're coming from, who are they, doing your homework, and getting to know them. If they're not in Brazil, like in Erica's case, I think Eduardo's suggestions are correct. Start networking through people who might already know, who are already working in Brazil. They might be giving some tips. They can reach out to organizations that of networks of organizations here, like the AB startups that Vinicius mentioned, or like people like Eduardo, myself, and Eduardo and Vinicius. We work with a lot of entrepreneurs and networks, so we can also help point to the right directions. So this kind of angle, working from Canada side, reaching out to different organizations here, like ABC startups as well, and working with individuals that are already in this network, like Eduardo, myself, and Vinicius, and others.
Sounds good. Now we have the last question because we need to finish. We are overdone. Oscar from Toronto. Are any events in Brazil that would you recommend for international startups to attend?
Sure. I think in the beginning I have two big events. One in the beginning of the year, that's Campus Party. That's an event that happens all over the world, but in Brazil is the biggest instance is here in Brazil. It's going to happen right now in January, and at November, that is all the annual conference for startups and entrepreneurs that is created by the Brazilian Association of Startups as well. So I think these two events, we have the majority of the Brazilian startup ecosystem there, so you can talk to pretty much anyone from accelerators, from the government, from agencies that are supporting startups and entrepreneurs, and even founders as well. So I think the two bigger events in Brazil that you can go and meet a lot of people. And people that speaks in English as well, so it's easier there.
Okay, good. Any other recommendation around for events?
There's a couple websites and we can probably share that with everybody, that talks about different events. There's a lot of events in São Paulo, like the one that Vinicius mentioned, Case. There's places you can look for events. Definitely the Case one and the Campus Party are some of the biggest ones. But again, it also depends what kind of sector you're looking at, because there are some events that are specific to different sectors that might be in different cities. So there's a lot of online resources on that. Actually, we can look for upcoming events, or again, we can help out with different information as you request them. They can go through you, Miriam, and we can help find some information to send to them if needed.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I would also add that I agree. I agree 100% with what they said. I would also add that if you're looking for local investors, if you're trying to come with bring your startup to Brazil and look for local investors, I would definitely go to the annual ABVCAP conference. ABVCAP is the Brazilian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. It's like the Brazilian equivalent of the CVCA that you guys have in Canada. They have a conference every year, which where you're going to find all of the most, if not all, the venture capitalists in Brazil, all of the main government institutions, and all of the main institutional investors in Brazil, and you can get a very good idea of what's happening in the industry right now.
Good. That's a really good event that maybe many of these startups may consider to attend. Last question will be, what is the best way to contact you? Will be through LinkedIn, through email? What is the best way to contact you right now?
Email.
Email. Good.
Yes.
Rafa? Vinicius? Yeah?
Because my microphone has a lag, so I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Or Facebook. I'm all over the place, so no problems meeting me.
Facebook, okay.
You can do that email or LinkedIn, either one, Miriam, thanks.
Either one. Okay, good. finally, for all of you having more questions, we're going to send an email after the webinar with a copy of the recording and the direct contact of our panelists. So you can keep your questions and you can see that you can contact them for any other questions. And thank you so much to everybody. I just wanted to point out here that remember that Go South can help you also with your business development and marketing strategy for 2016, and we have package available right now still at $50 per month. For any of you that are interested to learn more about these packages, please let us know and we can provide you details. Thanks everybody and have a nice rest of the day, and we keep in contact. Thank you.